cry. Brother.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Moment of Truth, Community Connoisseurs Instagram Live podcast that we bring to you every Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. We are super excited to have a special guest on tonight, y'all. We have a special guest on, Mr. Fernando Smith. Fernando is an activist, an entrepreneur that has a phenomenal story, a story of trial to triumph, right? So we are super excited to have him on this evening with us to share his story, to share some of the great things that he's done throughout his life, you know, to transition, and some of the great things that he's doing right now in his community to support positive change for his community. So if you have individuals in your network that would like to hear a phenomenal conversation with a phenomenal brother, Mr. Fernando Smith, tonight, hit that arrow at the bottom right-hand side of your screen and invite some people to this phenomenal conversation we're getting ready to have tonight. Fernando is a scholar. He comes from the struggle, but he's empowering his people now. So if you want to hear a story about an individual who transitioned his life for the better, that's making, helping kings and queens in his community thrive, this is the right conversation, the right live that you are on tonight. So with that said, before we bring on Fernando tonight, we're going to bring on our brother, Teacher Ross. Teacher Ross is an African-American educator based out of New York. He's a motivational speaker, and he is on right now on the Moment of Truth to open up the conversation with 5 minutes of joy juice. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in our brother, Teacher Ross, to give us some joy before we bring on Fernando. There he is.
Guess who's Bizak?
Red and black, right?
Yo, coordination.
How you doing, hard worker?
To God be the glory, man.
Absolutely.
To God be the glory.
Amen.
For everything we have, for all that you doing out there, you and your Vito and your Mike, all of y'all, man, community connoisseurs, what y'all are doing for the community, serving the community, hardworking community, good energy, community positivity is huge. You're local heroes, and it needs to be applauded because you are giving all you have and everything that you can do to make other people better. To make other people better, man. And it is just inspirational to see, and it's encouraging to be a part of. Thank you for the platform. And that's the shout out to you, the energy to you, because what you're doing on this platform is stories of glory for people, giving them the moment of truth, lifting them up. Absolutely. Giving everybody out there watching some energy to know there is no quit. There is no escaping fear. There is no escaping failure. There is no escaping hardships. There is no escaping heartaches. There is no escaping downfalls. There is no escaping doubt. There is no escaping challenges. There is no escaping the competition that we have to do. People give up. But we can never give up in ourselves, because God never, ever gives up in any of us. People could quit, but God never, ever quits on us. Never, ever give up on us. So I say to you tonight, all out there watching and listening, look for nothing going into 2023, but give everything you have in you to give, to be better, to be stronger, to be smarter. Look for nothing, ask for nothing, but give everything you have inside of you to become the best you could possibly be. Give all you have in you just to move and improve. Give all you have in you and ask for nothing. Look for nothing. Expect nothing, but give everything you have. I know some people out there watching, listening, could look in that mirror and say, I gave everything that I had in me to get to where I am right now in the life that I'm living. I gave it. Only people knew, truly knew what I had to sacrifice, what I had to go through, what I had to deal with, what I had to give up, what I had to take in, absorb to get to where we are right now, watching and listening, me and you on the screen, and everybody who will see this message tonight. If you survived in the life you live, and I'm sure it's something in you had to take everything you have to give. So as you move into this new year, as you listen to this message tonight, may it give you some kind of energy in you for you to never, ever, ever, ever think it's going to take anything less than everything. Your all, hard workers, watchers, and listeners. Your all. Ask for nothing. Give your all. And I can assure you, as I send my last words off, as I prepare you for another great one, goodness will follow you when you give everything you have in you. More effectiveness, more efficiency will come to you when you give all you have. More success, more achievement, more accomplishment will find its way in your path when you are giving all you have, giving everything you have in you to be the best in you that you have to give. There will be no failure. There will only be lessons that will be a bigger part of the puzzle from your goodness to your greatness. Keep the joy juice flowing in you out there. Keep leaving people better that you come in contact with out there. And please invite in one friend to hear this great message that's going to lift you up tonight, yo. Victory coming to y'all. Goodness coming to y'all, yo. CG, thank you for having me. Looking for a great one, my brother.
It's a pleasure having you back, Ross, man. You know, missing you the last couple of weeks. You got that update. We'll be back in action, man. So thank you for being who you are. We definitely appreciate all your positive energy and everything that you do for your community as well. If y'all don't follow our brother, Teacher Ross, follow him at Teacher Ross on IG. Very positive brother. He has his own platform that he does as well. On Sundays, make sure y'all follow our brother, Teacher Ross. So now we're going to go ahead and introduce our special guest for tonight, Fernando Smith, by reading his bio, and then I'm going to bring him in. Again, those who just joined, this is the Moment of Truth Community Connoisseurs Instagram Live podcast that we bring to you every Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. And we have the honor and pleasure to have Fernando on with us tonight. If you have anyone in your network that would like to hear a powerful story about a brother that's doing very impactful work in his community that comes from a trial to triumph story, you're going to hear a lot about Fernando's life tonight and some of the great things that he's been able to do. Please hit that arrow at the bottom of your screen and invite some people to this conversation. This is going to be a great conversation tonight that you don't want to miss. Stay locked in with us. So Fernando is a native Washingtonian. Fernando Smith earned his bachelor's degree with Phi Theta Kappa honors from the HBCWV University, with his sights on becoming an attorney in the future. He has been a community activist since 2006 as a consultant for Peaceaholics, where he also provided housing and job placement opportunities to DC returning citizens in West Virginia who found it problematic to return to their home community. Business and economic development was his initial calling, as he was the CEO of a multi-million-dollar used car business while managing corporate social responsibility projects under his leadership in Maryland and West Virginia. He missed home and returned in 2021 to DC to enjoy his 5 grandchildren and to join the fight in gun violence prevention under Building Blocks, which has now evolved into the Office of Gun Violence Prevention since 2022. He plans to use his real-world experiences as a gun violence survivor to assist in bringing healing and transformation to those most at risk for gun violence as a credible messenger, and to continue his academic pursuits to be a real-world example of the message he brings. As an avid motorcyclist for over 35 years, he finds riding and hearing the roar of pipes to be his therapy and self-care. So without further ado, we're going to bring in our brother, Fernando Smith. Again, if you're just joining us, please hit that arrow at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. This is going to be a phenomenal conversation that we're getting ready to have with our brother, Fernando. And we're going to go ahead and send him that request right now. Shout out to everybody that's joining us. Mike G, what up? Vito, thanks for joining. Tina, Bull Yoga in the building. I see all of y'all, Miss Griselda, all of the good people that's joining us tonight. This is going to be a phenomenal conversation. Let me go ahead and add our brother Fernando. All right, Fernando, I just sent you that invite, brother. Let's tap in. Fernando, what's up, bro? Hey, so you might
Hey,
want
hey,
to
what's
you
going on,
might have
champ?
to move. There you go. There you go. It was sideways at first. There we go. That's perfect there, brother. Good evening, brother. How you feeling, man? That's
Oh man, I'm
wonderful,
good.
man.
I'm good. I'm
First and
always good.
foremost, you could be doing a lot right now, Fernando, man. I want to especially thank you for joining our platform. You got a lot going on. You're a man of the community. You're a father. You're a grandfather. I mean, you got a lot on your plate, brother. And you're working on a lot of projects. I know you and I talk often, and you got your hands full going into this new year. But for you to take time out of your evening to come on our platform to share some space with us, to share your story, and to kick some game, man, drop some Jews. On behalf of community connoisseurs, I just want to say thank you first and foremost, bro.
Man, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the invite as well. It's not too much that, you know what I'm saying, to be able to welcome somebody, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you
Absolutely,
welcoming
man.
me on like that.
Absolutely. So, what we like to do when we first kick off our conversations on the moment of truth, Fernando, what we do is it's people that's tapping in from your personal network, people that's coming in from our network. But for those who are on right now, right, who don't know who Fernando Smith is, we want to take them all the way back to childhood. Let's take them all the way back, right? We're gonna start out with the young Fernando coming up in DC. Let's take them back. Tell them a little bit about your upbringing coming up in DC, Fernando.
All right. Well, I was born in Southeast Washington, D.C., Hadley Memorial Hospital, and they call it the third world now. I went to Friendship Educational Center. I grew up around there. And growing up around there at the time, that was home to me. So I didn't see it. It wasn't violent. Drugs were in the area, but I was young, so I didn't even know that drugs was in the area. I didn't even know that I was associating with drug dealers at the time, because they were part of the community. They was pillars to the community, believe it or not, back in that time. And I learned business early on. So I was up in the Southeast up until 10 years old. And, up by the time I was 10 years old, I had already started my first business, which was taking out trash cans. I used to knock on people's doors to take out trash cans, because we didn't have no money back then. So everybody was the same. So everybody didn't have nothing. So we didn't see that as being unusual. So all of us was hustlers, trying to get money, trying to do that. So I
Right.
learned that ethnic of working really early on. And I'm glad that I learned that. And then from there, my mother, who actually worked, through the Marion Berry. She was actually, because she, when she left my father, I was
Mm-hmm.
2 years old. So I didn't have a father. So my father was gone from the age of 2. So but my mother had that strong work
Mm-hmm.
ethic. So she would never give up. So you would never know we lived in Southeast when you came in our house. The floors were spick and clean. Everything was
Mm-hmm.
clean. Her work ethic was amazing. So she ended up going through the Marion Berry joint, man, and transitioning us and getting us up out of Southeast, which she
Mm-hmm.
thought was a
So
win-win.
you
But
said, and
go
I
ahead.
would definitely want to, continue to talk about, your mom and your history coming up in Southeast. But you said that you were born at Hadley Hospital, and you said you went to Friendship. You talking about Friendship down the street from Third, right? It ain't called Friendship.
Well,
That's
yeah,
what I
well, it
was
ain't
saying. That
called
was a
Friendship no more.
graduate.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it was
remember.
the
I
first
don't
open
remember. I was
school.
young when it was called Friendship, but I graduated from P.I. Hurst, which used to be called Friendship. So when you said Friendship Educational Center, I was like, damn.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah,
That's crazy. Right? So we graduated from the same. Well, not
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
went to the same school that I went to.
So you said, you had a single mother by the age of 2. You said your father, because one of the things that I like to talk about, Fernando, when it comes to our community, right, and a lot of our different brothers and sisters come on and share their story is their household. And that's what I like to kind of talk about right now, hone in on right now, is how you grew up in your household. And you said, as a young man, you grew up from the age of 2. You grew up with your father, without your father. It was because your parents separated.
Yeah, yeah. Well, uh, unbeknownst at me at the time, because I didn't know, my my mother was a very strong black woman. She would never really talk bad about my father. So a lot of the stuff that I know now, I learned as I got older. But he was abusive at the time, not only to me, but to, some of our other siblings as well. So my mother, when he came into the marriage, he had 3 children that he brought into the marriage. And then it was 4 of us that she had with us. So it was 7 of us all together in the household. So when they separated, I lost my brother, I lost my 2 brothers and my sister because they went with him. So he took them with him, and then she kept the 4 of us in Southeast.
So when that happened, right, when that split happened, you lost, I mean, your father, you never had after that, did you see your father? Did you still have a relationship with your dad? How did that work?
Man, that's funny you asked that, because there's only one memory that I have of my father back during that time. And that is, I can always remember my mother telling us that he's coming to get us, right? But he would never show up. He would never show up. He would never show up, right? So this one particular time, I guess he must have assured her that he was showing up, but she had us all dressed up to take him out, and he was supposed to take us shopping and supposed to take us to get something to eat. Well, when he showed up, he picked us up, but and we went to go, out on the boat with him. And we went, I never forget, we went to I think it was a Sizzlers or something like that, where it was an open buffet. And we had just missed how like the hour, and I'm young, but I still remember this. You feel what I'm saying? And you know how like the hour missed where you missed the lunch special? But because we missed the lunch break, now we done waited in line all the way up to get to the joint. When we get to the joint, he arguing with the people because now the lunch special gone and they done switched the price. So we done smelt all, and they got it to where you walk past and you smell all of the food, see all of the food and all of this. So we ready because we hungry. We've been waiting all day. Mother didn't feed us because she knew he was coming. And he walked us right back out that joint, man, and took us back to the car. And then never went shopping, and then dropped us off at home. And that was the last time I ever remember having any dealings with him. And the next time I saw him was when I caught my first charge at 11 years old.
I want to talk about that for a minute. Being a young man, having a vision of who your father is, and then your father just kind of like leaving your life the way that he did, due to the circumstances. I know him and your mom weren't seeing eye to eye. He was abusive in that relationship. And then for him to do what he did and just never seeing him again, man. As you know, there's a lot of brothers that come up that, sometimes don't have their dad in their life. You being one of them, growing up as a young man in the city, how did that impact you as a young man?
Well, the good thing about it, my mother had it was 10 of them, 2 daughters, and I had 8 uncles. So I had my uncle. So I never really actually felt that. I never really, you know what I'm saying, because my uncle actually ended up living with us because he got separated. So in Southeast, it's a whole lot different now. Now, you don't take people in, but back then you would take, if they family, they can come in. So my uncle was sharing a room with me and my brother in Southeast in a 3-bedroom apartment. So, right. So I always saw him get up to go to work. That work ethic was always there. So much so that he had a side hustle where he had an ice cream truck. So I ended up working on the ice cream truck because I knew how to count money. Because remember, I had already had the business going on with taking out the trash. So they was able to see that in me. So they expounded upon that, and they took me out on the ice cream truck, and that lasted. It was bittersweet because the area, I didn't know that the area was as violent as it was because it was.
You don't really, you don't pay no attention. It's just your.
So I ain't paying no attention, but because I was in Southeast, you couldn't be no sucker. You know what I'm saying? They put you out there and you had to know how to fight. You did this. Remember, I'm only 10 years old at the time. I'm 9, 8 years old. And I remember somebody, it was my last day on the ice cream truck. And I never forgave my uncle for doing that, right? I'm on the ice cream truck, and you know the little money that you have on your side, the quarters, the dimes, the nickels, and then you just
Yeah.
go ching, 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 ching. Well, a
Mm.
joker snatched the joint from me. I jump off the ice cream truck at 8 years old, and I'm
Wow.
chasing this joker. So I'm chasing this joker, so my uncle chasing me. So finally, when they catch me,
Yeah.
of course the dude get away because I couldn't catch the dude. But when he caught me, man, that was it. I never saw the ice cream truck. Then after that, man, and
Yeah.
he said I didn't know how
Yeah.
dangerous that was what I did. So I ain't never
And that was at
work
10
on the ice cream
years
truck ever
old.
again after that.
8 years old.
I was at eight
Wow.
years old.
Wow. So
Yeah,
by 8 years old, you had already had that entrepreneurial experience, but then you came into something, that was kind of, was drastic for an 8 year old for somebody to come and snatch the money from you. You know what I mean? And dealing with that, how did you kind of recope from that situation? Because as an 8 year old, that's like a trauma. If you know what I'm saying? For somebody to come and snatch your money, and it was an adult, right? It was a
yeah, it was an adult. Well, teenager, adult. It could have been a teenager at the time. Remember, I'm 8, so all I know is that a big dude,
right,
an older dude,
right.
snatched the
So
money from me, and then
dealing
bam,
with
bam,
that
bam, I
in that
chased him down.
environment hits a little different. You know what I mean? Because you already in a rough environment. You know what I mean? And to get something taken from you, as you just mentioned, you couldn't. Coming up in your environment, you had this image to uphold, right? Or you couldn't go for nothing. You know what I'm saying? And for that to happen in the way it did, how did you kind of cope with that? How did you get through that?
Well, I was hurt because my Saturday, that was my whole Saturday. So, you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And that was my Saturdays for a couple of weeks, you know what I'm saying? And so I was hurt. I actually blame my uncle for that. But I kind of like developed the attitude
Yeah,
that nobody was never going to take nothing from me
yeah,
ever again. And that's
yeah.
where I
And
got
that's
that
where that
from. Like,
question kind of stirred from. Because oftentimes, coming up in the environments that we come up in, those traumas, those situations happen at a very young age that shape your mentality, right? You know what I mean? For the rest of your life, especially if you're coming up and kind of somewhat always got to be on the defense. So I was just curious to know how that shaped the way you looked at life as an 8 year old after that situation happened. And I would like to, elaborate a little bit more on after that situation. Obviously you were into entrepreneurial endeavors at a young age. After that situation, what did you do after that?
well, I was such a persistent person. Like I don't, like I told you, my mom was determined. So I was able to draw that from her and to see how determined she was to get anything and do anything. My mother never gave up on anything. I never saw my mother give up on anything ever. She worked 2 jobs. So what I did was I tried to get into sports. So when I was going to friendship school, I tried to get into sports, but I couldn't play sports because I really didn't have no real childhood at that time. I didn't have a basketball. Wasn't no basketball courts around my area. So, man, I tried to, get in but I was so persistent with trying to make the team running up and down the court.
Oh
They end up
wow.
making me the manager of the team. So they end up creating a position for me and gave me a little shirt. And I'm actually got the picture with him and everything because we went to the championship too. So we won the championship. So I ended up becoming the manager of the team. So as the manager of the team, because I knew money, they put me in charge of the fundraising, and we used to sell popcorn in Friendship or at
Hmm.
lunchtime. So I used to pocket the money. I started stealing. I started pocketing the money. So I was coming home with 10,
Yeah.
$12 every day, cause I would take it and ding the trash, ding it like I put the money in. But for all the dollars that I got, I slid the dollars in my pocket and just gave them the change out the thing. So I would come home with about 10, $12 every day. So I had like, I remember my mother finding money and not knowing where the money came from. And I got like a vicious, like
Yeah.
my mother was real strict. So she whipped us, you know what I'm saying? And I got
Wow.
a vicious ass whipping over that, man.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
couldn't tell her
Yeah.
where that
So
money came from.
after that, you started. What was your first like legitimate entrepreneurial experience? Because it seems like, when you were young, you weren't really, you know, like getting, you weren't employed or anything. You were finding a way in an entrepreneurial in a way of an entrepreneur. So tell us a little bit when you were young, like your first, what you got into to really see some real money.
All right. Well,
Okay.
all right, let me take you back for a minute. We moved, okay, from Southeast. My mother was doing everything she can to get us out of Southeast, everything. So we moved to Tacoma Park, so a place called Belford Towers. She thought that that was the blessed thing smoking. We moved to Tacoma Park. She thought that we was doing something major. But what happened was she destroyed me because I ain't had no friends. I'm 10 years old. I never forget. My best friend was Ronald. We cried, man, and I had no friends. So when I went up there, because of the things that I was involved with, I didn't know how to ride bikes. I didn't know nothing about no football. I couldn't play basketball. So all of the things that kids was doing during that time when we moved up there, I couldn't do. So basically, I went and I tried to get side jobs. So I
Okay.
ended up getting a job at a massage parlor. So yes, so you know, you know, it was a whorehouse, but it was a massage parlor. You feel what I'm saying? So that's what I said. So I was able to peep and not be afraid to never try my hand at whatever I was trying my hand at. So I ended up getting a job at a massage parlor. So I was still always getting money. Then I went from the massage parlor and I started working at the arcade. Then from the arcade, I started working at, you know, I would take out trash. So I would do whatever I could to do that. But as I got older, you know, money, you know, my clothes wasn't nowhere near. I never forget the last time my mom went shopping for me. She bought me Billy the Kid. All of that was cool when we was living in Southeast. But when we moved to Tacoma Park, they up there, they wearing, you know, Adidas. They wearing Nike. They wearing these different things that I didn't have the privy to. So I wore the outfit that she got me, and I'll never forget. It was the last time she ever went shopping for me, and I was 11 years old, and I wore Billy the Kid outfit out of Morton's to school, and I got laughed at. Joan that ended up turning me into a small little bully because I ended up beating up the white boys, taking their lunch money after that. I started boosting. I started getting on the bus, going to New Carrollton, going to PG Plaza, and I would just go up in that joint and I would boost and I would sell the clothes. So that's when I started to get real money because I started actually getting hundreds of dollars at that time. It wasn't no small money because, you know, we were still in some major, you know, some major ticket items.
So, you know, speaking of that, right, you know, one of the things that is a part of your story, you know, in your early life is the fact that, you know, you were in and out. You were at a young age, you were in and out of the juvenile system. Was that because of the boosting that you were doing? You were getting caught doing that, or what got you, you know, in the trouble that you got into as a youth?
My first charge was stealing a bike, and I don't even know why I stole the bike. And the way how they carried that, it could have went a whole lot different. I had got on a bus to travel to, and the person that I was with, he just died not even a week ago, Lord Troy. He lived in New Carrollton. So I would catch the bus, go to New Carrollton, and then we would just, you know, walk around the area. You know, he was older than me. So, you know, he was the first person that took me off the porch and saw something. My brother really didn't mess with me because, you know what I'm saying, I was younger than him. So it was his way of trying to save me because he was involved in a whole lot of other stuff as well. But he would never let me hang with him. So I had to find my own crew to hang with. So I ended up hanging with another crew outside of the area where we was at. And I ended up stealing a bike. But I wasn't taking the bike to go home. Like where we come from, if a bike was left outside, you would get on the bike and you would ride the bike. If, you know, you wasn't taking the bike to steal it, you're going to bring the bike back. Now, when I got on the bike, the white father came outside, chased me down, and held me till the police came. And I ended up, that was my first case that I caught.
Wow.
I was 11 years old.
You know, did they, I mean, how did you didn't do no time for that or nothing, did you?
No, I didn't do no time for that, but I mean, I had to go through the court system. I ended up catching a charge, and I learned through the process. For example, I learned, you know, never to lie to your attorney. You feel what I'm saying? Meaning that always come with the same story one time. I had 50 different stories. So never forget that the attorney told me, and that's what I first learned. He gave me a card. He said, "Don't you ever talk to the police ever again." And I never forget that. It was a woman attorney, and she told me straight up. She was like, get this card, and from that point on, I carried the card around that said that I would, I don't want to speak. Contact my attorney, and I'm 11 years old, and that's normal to me at the time. You feel what I'm saying? So when I look back at it now, I'm like, wow, that's nuts, because I would never expect to get after my son at 11 years old. But I did learn something, because I learned the value of never to talk to the cops, because they would switch it around, they would turn it around, they would tell this, they would tell that.
Right.
So that only got me in deeper trouble. So that was the first time I ever talked to the police, and the last time I ever
That's
talked to the
happy
police.
for 11 years old, right? And you were, again, you were in and out. So like after that situation, obviously you got back into doing some things that got you in trouble. Okay.
It went violent after that. There was a dude in our neighborhood, right, called Zeke. And so everybody, now remember, I'm boosting at the time, so I'm making a little bit of money now. So I got I got a little reputation. You feel what I'm saying? That I'm, in the area, in the neighborhood. You feel what I'm saying? No real fight, no real violence or anything like that. But it was a dude there, that was, Zeke. So everybody used to play with Zeke and Joan on him. And they would say, Zeke Adika that freak. Zeke Adika that freak, right? They would kept saying that. So it was like about 4 or 5 of us out there saying that. Remember, I'm the youngest one out of all of them. So he picked me because I was saying it too, and he came up and he slapped me. So I lived in 213, 6735. So my door is right there. In the drawer of my door was a little teeny hammer that my mother used to use. You know how like them little hammers that you can utilize to do anything with? It got the screwdriver with it. It's got all of that. I ran into the door, grabbed the hammer. Remember, because I know this is where I come from. I know not to be no sucker. I ran and grabbed that hammer, and by the time he hit the elevator to go, because he lived on the 12th floor, by the time he hit the elevator to go on, I slid through the elevator, and it was just me and him on that elevator. By the time he got on that elevator, man, I hit that dude, and he was a grown-ass man. I beat the dude so bad that that's when I got locked up, and
How
they
long
sent
were
me
you
away
away
for that.
charge? Okay.
About 6 months. That's why I say from the age 11 all the way up until when I came home in 2006, the longest time that I was ever on the street was 11 months. It was charge after charge after
they were
charge
just
after
different
charge.
charges, or they were more so violent charges after that?
It was a little bit of mixture of both. The next violent charge that I caught was at 15 when I actually caught a murder charge.
We're gonna talk about that a little bit, but I wanted to because during that time frame, right, when you were going back and forth, and you were going back and forth the prison or whatnot as a youth, you also had a child, right? Yeah.
Yes.
You had
I had
a daughter at 13. Wow. So tell us a little bit about, how, you out running around, you getting into things, you active, but you also had a child. Did that kind of, change your perspective on the way that you were living at that point in time? Or was it one of those situations where you were so immature that you really didn't even?
It was quite the opposite, man. Okay, first of all, let me tell you how I found out about my daughter. My daughter was conceived when I was 13. I didn't know I actually had her until I was 14. I had got sent away. I had caught an armed robbery charge because I used to travel to, I was boosting. So once you start getting high ticket items, remember, I'm dealing with older guys. We have a crew now. So I started going to 7&T to sell the items. So once I started going to 7&T, I started, traveling back and forth. So I ended up catching an armed robbery charge, and I ended up getting sent away to Cedar Knoll. When I got sent away to Cedar Knoll, when I came out home from Cedar Knoll, I was on the bus traveling back up, and I ran into my daughter's mother's sister, Dee Dee. So Dee 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 was on the bus, and Dee said to me, she was like, Fernando, you know you got a daughter. And I'm looking at her, I'm like, huh, I got a daughter? She was like, yeah, Teresa had a baby. And I'm like, huh? So remember, I'm 14. I ain't, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, so I end up catching the bus, going to Langley Park where she was at to see my daughter. And that's when I found out that I had my daughter. And that's how I was able to find out. At the time, my daughter was like 3 to 6 months. I was of such an age, but you got to understand, at the time, my mentality wasn't of a 14-year-old. I was of such an age when I walked into the house and I saw how my daughter was living, and I saw how they was living. It was dudes in the house, smoking weed. The mother was in the house. So I had already had a vicious name for myself. So, you know, there was a little fear dealing with me at the age of 14. So when I walked up in the house, I grabbed my daughter. I told her to pack a bag for her. I packed a bag for my daughter, and I didn't know what to do, but I knew that my daughter could not stay in that environment. So I took my daughter and took her to my mother. I got back on the bus, took her to my mother, and walked in the house with my daughter in my arms, and my mother the whole time talking about, who baby is that? Who baby is that? I'm like, it's my baby. It's my baby. It's my baby. And, you know, my mother, you know, she was like, nah, you got to get out of here. You can't do this. You can't do that. Blah, 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 blah. So I took the daughter in my room, and I'm, you know, acting faking like I'm packing my clothes and, you know, get ready to get up out this joint. You feel what I'm saying? And my daughter started crying. So my mom on the phone with her girl, this nigga done came in here with a goddamn baby and da 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 da. I don't know who baby he done stole. How the fuck he 14 years old? How the fuck he get a goddamn baby, and who let him take the baby? And so, you know, she trying to run all of this through her mind at the time. And yeah, she trying to process it. So in the meantime, my daughter started crying. So she goes in, snatched my daughter up, crying, and that was it. Once she picked her up, it was all over.
I mean, the mom ain't never tried to come at you.
Not with me, Slim. Once I made a move like that, you know what I'm saying? And that's something that my daughter had to deal with as a result of that, because she thought that her mother abandoned her. But I had to explain to her, nah, I was such a vicious dude that if I said something went the way it went, that's the way it went. So she didn't have no choice. So she tried to get her back when I got locked up. And I end up, you know what I'm saying, getting her back when I came home, and then that was it. After that, she basically, you know what I'm saying, dealt with her from a distance. But it was because, you know, her mother was young too, so her mother wasn't ready to have her, and I felt that my mother was the best thing that ever happened to her. And to this day, my daughter agrees. My daughter has graduated from Hampton University. Man, she, you know what I'm saying, she 6-figure income, gave me 2 grandkids. Oh, I got 6 grandkids now, because I just had another grandson. Yeah, so you know, you know, that's been something that she had to deal with between her mother, because she's still fighting with, why didn't her mother come back and get her? Well, it was because her mother couldn't come back and get her.
So she made amends with her mother, or was that something that she still kind of deals with sometimes?
She still deals with it at times, because her mother is sick. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, her mother ended up having further babies, and her mother ended up having to deal with alcoholism and stuff like that. So, you know what I'm saying, there's different levels of trauma that her mother's going through, and I'm trying to help her work through that, to let her know that, you know, her mother still loves her.
She just
you feel
going through her battles. So you know, after you find out you have a daughter, you know, you go get your daughter, you bring her home, you know, congratulations on the grandbaby that you have as well. And you know, congratulations on her successes as well, man. Because to go through all of that and to, you know, be able to graduate from college and, you know, obtain a successful career, you know, that's huge, man. That's a testament of her upbringing, you know, and everything that you all poured into her. So congratulations on that too, and salute to your daughter for all of her accomplishments. I wanted to go back. So at 13, basically 14, you know, you get your daughter, right? And then at 15, you get hit with a body.
Okay, I gotta take you back for a minute. Remember, I'm in the house with my mom time. So After I caught this, I caught
Yeah.
a beef, right, for stealing. You know how they
Right.
snatching clothes out and
Mm-hmm.
all that. Well, we were doing that back then. Okay, we was breaking into what was Fila sweatsuits. We was stealing all that. We was going in, grabbing all them joints
Right.
and
Right.
running out. We was doing all that back then. So I end up going to
Mm-hmm.
Virginia. We used to travel. We had a crew that would pick us up, and then we would travel to different malls outside of the state, picking up clothes, and we would
Mm-hmm.
load the car up, and then we would go to 7T to sell it. Well, I end up catching a beef where basically
Mm-hmm.
I got caught in
Yeah.
Virginia.
Yeah.
Virginia don't play. And they sent me
Wow.
to Fairfax Juvenile Detention Center. And they
Yeah.
basically let me know the stealing was over. At that point, I was facing, like, to me, that was time. You feel what I'm saying? So I'm like 14. Like I told you, I'll be on the street 3 months and catch a case, 4 months, catch a case. You feel what I'm saying? So I end up catching this case where they end up trying to put me down for like
Yeah.
about a year and a half. It was really serious. You know what I'm
That's how
saying? As far
I
as
did VA.
that's how they
Yeah.
was carrying it. Like, right, right. So they really trying to put the hammer on me. So I end up, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm
Mm-hmm.
divided. Remember, I'm strategic in this.
Right.
Everything that I'm doing is to try to get money. It wasn't for fun. It was trying to get money. So at this particular point in time, I decided that I'm done with the stealing. And because I had already been going down 7T, I already knew about the hustling game. So I end up meeting a connect off of 14th Street. And that's what I'm saying. We traveled. Like, it ain't
Yeah.
like it is now. We didn't stay in no one hood. So you feel what I'm saying? We went to 14th Street. I used to go to 14th Street every day, 14th and Randolph, and I ended up meeting my
Mm-hmm.
man Cash down there at the Red Pit. And I was like 14 years old, and people would see something in me. They would know. You feel what I'm saying? Out of the crew, you
Yeah.
would be able to
Yeah.
pick, okay, Shorty trying to get some money. So he gave me some lead.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, Love Boat was out. So he gave me a Love Boat, say, here, take this, Shorty. Let me show you what to do. Broke that joint down, put it in aluminum foil, and then bam, bam, bam. I was trying to, make the moves. They were selling Love Boat on 7T. I took the joint to 7T because I already knew about it. I didn't stay on 14th Street. I popped that joint the same day, came back the next day with his money. He was like, what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? Like, how this little youngin', woo, woo, woo. So next thing you know what I'm saying? He giving me legs instead of one leg. So I'm busting legs off going to 7T. But in the meantime, my mother found my money,
Mm-hmm.
and she found my stash. And she had threatened, she
Mm-hmm.
told me she was throwing it away. So I basically let her know. And I was, remember, I'm a young dude, so I don't have no father. So I'm being real
Yeah.
aggressive with my mom. And to this day,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
still seek forgiveness for that. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? I wasn't a good dude.
Yeah.
You feel me? I wasn't a good dude at all. But I'm being aggressive to my mom, and I'm letting my mom know, look, if you flush that down the toilet, you jeopardizing this whole
Mm-hmm.
household, because Slim gonna come for his
Mm-hmm.
money. So my mom basically told me, look, I got to get up out of there. And she was going to put me in, at that time, it was like a training school where
Mm-hmm.
you could get your child put in training school. She was going to put me in training school. I told her if she
Mm-hmm.
put me in training school, I was going to escape. And so
Right.
I worked, but my brother was living with us. So I ended up working behind the scenes with my brother, my
Mm-hmm.
oldest brother, who was on crack at the time. So I end up making a deal with him because he's trying to get my mother to
Mm-hmm.
co-sign an apartment for him. So I end up going to my mother, convincing my mother, look, why don't you co-sign the apartment for him? I'll go live with
Mm-hmm.
him because my mother don't know he on drugs. I do though. You feel what I'm saying? So I end up getting my mother to co-sign an apartment for him, and she co-signed an apartment for him, and I go to live with my brother. And man, it was all she wrote after that. Man, I'm living with my brother. I'm feeding my brother, man. I'm paying the rent with my brother, man. It was it. It was all she
Wow.
wrote. At that
Wow.
time, I'm
So
all the way turned out.
yeah. So you go deep in the game at that point, and at 15, I want to go back to 15, man. The charge you caught, man. You know that, because like you said, you had little spurts where you were out. You weren't out for long until you might run into another jam. You know what I mean? And then between that time of 13 and 14, where you met your daughter's in your life now, you go back to the street.
My mother kept my daughter too. Let me make it
Okay,
clear. I
got
left, but I didn't take
then
my daughter.
you live with your brother, and you doing your thing for a while, and then you catch this charge at 15. Tell us a little bit of anything that you're at liberty to talk about in regards to one of your biggest charges that you caught at an early age at 15 years old.
Well, I let me rewind it back to you so I can put.
Okay, go ahead. I can hear you now.
Yeah,
Okay.
let me rewind it back so I can put some substance to it. Okay. Uh, when we was down 7T, I ended up meeting a dude by the name of Jimmy McNair. Jimmy McNair became my man. All right. He was a little bit older than me. Okay. And I end up, we end up hitting it off tight. So basically, when I started, I was going to school down in DC because I got put out of Maryland school. So I was going to school down in DC, and so I was going from I think it's Garnett, Patterson. I don't remember the school, but the school that's right around there used to be right around 17th Street area right there. That's where I met Coco, Dodo, all of them at down there.
Yeah.
So I'm making connects down there because I'm rumbling. So when you rumbling, and people don't know you're a sucker, they tend to respect you at the time. So I end up getting a lot of respect from these people from these areas. So Jimmy McNair was one of the dudes I ended up getting respect from. We ended up hustling together. He was paying me $150 a day. So, but I was a young dude at the time. I really wasn't all the way deep in the game yet. So I end up catching the attempted robbery charge down, the armed robbery charge down. There's somebody end up taking our boat, snatching the boat again. I end up chasing them down, and we end up beating them with down there. And then they end up telling the police that we robbed them, but it really wasn't that. But I end up, because you're a juvenile, once an adult say you did something, and then they pull up my past and see I already got all of this, they end up locking me up and sending me to Cedar Knoll. So while I'm at Cedar Knoll, and I come out of Cedar Knoll, Jimmy went to Oak Hill. So we got separated. Jimmy ended up coming home, and he ended up getting late again. Now, the whole time while Jimmy doing that, I ended up meeting a girl. He had a girl by the name of Tina. Okay? So the girl that he had by the name of Tina, you feel what I'm saying, which was his main girl, because back then it was your main girl. This is my main girl. This is my main girl. So when I end up coming out of Cedar Knoll, because now I done got put out of DC school and had to go back to Maryland school because I'm back living with my mom again. I end up going to High Point High School. But by this time, I got a car. Now I'm no longer getting legs. I'm getting 16-ounce bottles of water, half a gallons of water, and I'm making major money now. So I'm on a whole new different level. I'm making, like, it's astronomical. I had the whole school who ain't even never heard of that. We created a strip up there called Powder Mill. So at the time I had 7T. I was supplying 7T. I had Fleetwood, and I had Powder Mill. I'm only in the 9th grade. While I'm up that joint, guess who I see waiting at the bus stop after school? Tina McNair. Tina, right? Which was Jimmy's old girl. So when I pull up on her, I'm like, bam, what's up, shawty? So I end up getting her, and it was all platonic. You know what I'm saying? It's my main girl. Ain't nothing going on. I'm dropping her off, and I'm like, well, where you going? She like, well, I got to go. Why? I'm driving at the time. Now, keep in mind, I don't have no license, but I'm driving a legitimate car and everything. So I end up driving her, Tina, home every day. So I had a routine with me. I was just a good nigga. So I would stop at Popeyes every time I'm going home, and I would eat lunch. Of course, I got money. I'm gonna let her eat too. So as I'm doing this, she ended up really falling for me. So one thing led to another. After a school year doing this, I end up messing with her. Jimmy locked up. Okay. So I feel bad about it. So I'm trying to tell her, look, you gotta let Jimmy know what's going on before Jimmy come home. So she wouldn't let Jimmy know what was going on. Now, keep in mind, I ain't telling her to cut Jimmy off or any of that, because Jimmy's still my man. You feel what I'm saying? I love this dude. So, but, one thing led to another. I'm 14 years old, 15 years old. So when Jimmy come home, I'll never forget this. When Jimmy come home, by this time, I had already told her. I'm like, look, Slim, this is what's going on. She ain't telling you, but man, why? This is where we at. This is what's going on. At the time, gunplay wasn't really in effect, but I had guns, if that makes sense. Gunplay wasn't moving at this time. This in the early 80s. Gunplay wasn't moving at this time, but I had guns. And I had my daughter. So one of the things about me with my daughter was kidnapping and all that was in. So I still used to carry my joint. And I was vicious with it. So Jimmy basically arguing, and he keep going. I never forget the conversation. I was like, Slim, you talking in circles. Why don't we meet in person so you can see me face to face and we can get whatever we want to get up off our chest, and man, we can let it go from there, man, because I still care for you. I still love you. So we met at Taft Junior High School, and we were supposed to meet, just me and him, with nobody else. I had a 357 on me, and when I get there, he had 3 other dudes with him. And basically, we walk up the steps on Taft Junior High School, we talking, bam, bam, bam. He ended up, the dude down the thing, he ended up pulling out a joint. So when he pulled out a joint, I pulled my joint out. So he run down the steps. In between that was his cousin, Ern. Jimmy shooting up at me, I'm shooting down at Jimmy. His cousin get hit, which is my friend. The ballistic expert basically saying that the way that the bullet went in, it couldn't have been me that shot him, that it went up there. So it was Jimmy that actually shot him. But I got the beef for it because all of them told on me. Wow. Jimmy was the only one that didn't tell on me. So the 2 dudes that was there told, where it was Jimmy, another dude, and then Ern. Ern died, and to this day, man, that haunts my heart because they ran. Once the gunfire played, they ran. And the last words Ern said to me, man, was, man, why me? Why me? And I had to leave him in the street, jump in the car, and I rolled out. And then you know what I'm saying? I seen it on the news that he died, and wop. I turned myself, a couple of days, I ended up getting a lawyer and turned myself.
And they charged you with that.
Yeah, at the time, the law was you could be 15 years old, and no matter how close you was to your 16th birthday, as long as you wasn't 16, you could not get charged as an adult. They did everything they can to try to charge you as an adult, but they didn't charge him as an adult. And although in the juvenile system, it was involved or not involved. So because I had a gun and because I was there, even though I didn't shoot or kill him, I still got found guilty as involved because I was there. And I ended up getting a 2 years with a restriction. And they sent me to Oak Hill. And I was 15. I was 15, grade turn 16.
So once you come home from Oak Hill, what was out there? You went.
But I didn't come home from Oak Hill.
So that's when you went straight to Lawton, right? Where'd you go after that?
No. Back in the time, Oak Hill was a maximum security prison, a maximum security joint.
Wow.
I escaped from Oak Hill. I escaped from Oak Hill not one time, but 3 times. Remember, I had money. I had a lot of money. I was running 3 strips. So money at that time, you could do what you needed to do to get up out of there. You see what I'm saying? Wasn't nobody up there with no murders at this time. You feel what I'm saying? So I escaped from that joint, not 1 time, but 3 times. And every time I escaped, they put that joint on City Under Siege. So my whole area knew, everybody knew. So now everybody knew what I was doing. I was low key, but I was no longer low key because now I couldn't go back to my area that I was from. Everybody knew I was an escaped murderer. So I'm on the run this whole time. And that's and and that's when it really took off. That's when at that point I ain't had no fucks with me. I was just destroying anything and everything in my way.
Got you. So I do want to, because what's understood ain't got to be explained, right? We're going to fast forward a little bit for the sake of time, right? I know one of the things that we talked about was your time up in Lawton. Where did you end up going up to Lawton for? And tell us about that Lawton experience. I know some good brothers just put out a documentary in regards to the Lawton, the Prison of Terror documentary, in which I had the pleasure of watching, and it was a really, really good documentary, and I want to make sure I shout that out. And those brothers deserve all the accolades they receive and for that documentary and highlighting that experience. But for you, tell us a little bit about why you went up there, how you went up there, and your experience at Lawton.
Okay, all right. Let me cap off the Oak Hill joint. I escaped from Oak Hill so much, right, that I was giving the city bad publicity because I was an escaped murder. At the time, gun violence really started upping. At the time, during that time, I had 2 years with a restriction, so they could renew my restriction every year if they wanted to. I ended up catching a gun charge in Maryland. When I caught the gun charge in Maryland, I got sent back to Oak Hill, but my lawyer had already worked. They knew I wasn't going to stay there, and they couldn't put you in the hole at Oak Hill for longer than I think it was 10 days. They had worked it to where you couldn't go on the solid. So I had to get back on the compound. And once I got back on the compound, they knew I was going to escape. So they worked a deal out with me to give me an extended home visit. It was down low. It was between my lawyer. It wasn't publicized. So that's how I made it back out on the street with that. So when I made it back out on the street, I ended up catching a gun charge in DC. They had bonds. I ended up getting out on bond, and I ended up catching another gun charge. When I caught the other gun charge, it was when I got shot in the head. The police
tell us a little bit about that situation right there. How did that happen?
Well, basically, there was a small incident with one of my second baby mother, where I ended up getting into a situation with her father. My man was in the car with me, so he ended up getting deported, and he's still deported. He got deported. I'm still in touch with him, Czar. He ended up getting deported back to Jamaica as a result of being strong and holding firm and that and keeping things solid. Dude was solid, and that's the thing. I gotta give a shout out. I had solid dudes around me, man. Some real solid dudes that stuck with me, that didn't do no, it wasn't no rat up in none of them. But what happened was, I'm arguing with with my baby mother because she had a nigga over the house. Okay, remember, again, I'm 16, 17 now. Okay, so no, I'm 18, 19 at this time. So, because I caught a couple of gun charges, end up getting out, end up working the system on the adult charge because they couldn't use my juvenile convictions against me because it was closed. So, I'm arguing with my baby mother, and then when the father come out, me and the father get to tussling, my gun fall out onto the ground. I always kept a joint on me. My gun fall out on the ground. When my joint fall out on the ground, my man was sitting in the car. All he see is me trying to reach for my gun. So, in order to keep the father from getting my joint, he comes up and pistol whips the grandfather. And we end up leaving. The grandfather, a solid, regular citizen, so they call the police. So when they call the police, we leave. Now, when they get in my name, they already know that I'm loaded and I'm ready to go. They already know. So when they get in my name, the police in an undercover car pulls up on me, and they just start busting at me. I don't even know they police at the time. We don't even know nothing. So we running. You know what I'm saying? We trying to save our life. So I see a police car on South Dakota Avenue, blocking South Dakota Avenue. In my mind, I'm like, you know what I'm saying? These dudes got hardware. So I'm willing to take the police. So I'm gonna run into the key. The key was we gonna run into the police car. He gonna jump out the car and run with the joints. So Bam, I run into the police car. He jump out the car and run with the joint, and I put my hands up in the air. So I'm sitting in the car with my hands up in the air, and the police rolled right up on me and just shot me because we don't know we shooting at police now. You understand what I'm saying? So the word got out that, you know what I'm saying, when they put it in the thing that it was a shootout, that we shooting at the cops and all that, but it wasn't never like that. We never knew we were shooting at no cops. We never had no general idea. We thinking that, because remember, it's a lot of gunplay going on, so dudes out to get you. Right. So the police walked right up to me and shot me dead in my head, man, with my hands in the air like this. And that's how I was able to get. That's why I got a deformatory in my left hand.
Wow.
And that's how I got shot.
And you know, through that, they locked you up after you were shot. Is that when you were facing the death penalty?
No.
Okay.
That's when I caught the gun charge. So getting back on how I got the Lord, and I caught the gun charge because even though Zod took the pistols and got deported as a result of the pistols, because of the statement that the grandfather made that I had a gun, they utilized that and charged me with having a gun, and it revoked my probation on my other gun charge that I caught, and they gave me a youth act and sent me to youth center. And while I was in youth center, I was 10 days getting ready to come home from youth center, and I caught a triple homicide out Maryland. And that's when I was facing the death penalty. And I got served with a detainer while I was at youth center, get ready to come home, and they ended up putting me in the hole as a result of it. They came, got me, put me in the hole. And another thing I need to mention, remember Jimmy McNair was my man. We ended up patching it up. When Lawton was so vicious that while I'm getting off the bus at Lawton, Jimmy is already there. So Jimmy already knew that I was coming there. So when Jimmy was there, we, you know, when I got there, bam, 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 we, you know what I'm saying, we made amends, we, you know, he already had everything set up for me, bam, 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 and remember, he didn't tell on me, so he was still my man. He got on the stand and said, I don't know what happened. So I ended up getting put in the hole and with a detainer from DC, and I got shipped to Maryland. When I got shipped to Maryland, I was facing the death penalty on the triple homicide.
And you know, I want to talk about your time at Lawton. Then we're gonna transition, because I know a lot of people are hearing this story that Fernando has. You know what I mean? Obviously, he's been through a lot in his life, and you know, we only unpacking a little bit of it. You know what I mean? We can go for 3-4 hours unpacking so many stories, man. But we.
Well, let me say this real quick. I beat the charge. I did not get found. I got found not guilty for the triple homicide. It made the paper. I got found not guilty. My co-defendant got found guilty, but I got found not guilty. And basically, by the time I came home, at that time I was so much on the radar. They had turned all of my cases into now the feds are looking at me. So when the feds came and got me, and that way we can end this incarceration joint. By the time the feds came and got me, right, it was something called a 1B13. I'll never forget it because I started studying law after this. 1B13 is called relevant conduct. Okay? So even though you get found not guilty of a crime, they can still utilize it against you in sentencing if you get found guilty of any crime in the federal system under the sentencing guidelines. You understand that? So let's say I had 3 charges that I was facing that they picked back up. I beat all the charges. I beat the charge in Maryland. I got caught with a key and a half out Deep Creek, Maryland. I beat that. I beat the charge in PG County. I got caught with like something small, but whatever it was, like 33 grams. I think I had a half of an eighth. They used to call it a 33. And then I had another gun charge where I just had something small on me that they put on me. They actually planted that on me. I ended up beating all 3 of the charges. The feds came back and picked up all 3 of the charges. Had I got found guilty of any one of those charges, then I would have been facing any of that relevant conduct, which turned out to be like 27, 28 years. So I ended up taking a cop to 13 years. And another reason why I ended up taking the cop was because they didn't have any information about my crew, nothing. So what they told me was they was ready to go in and start doing a turn up everything and try to bring in people from my crew. So I ended up taking the cop to prevent all of that, and I took a cop to known and
you said
unknown
you took a
conduct.
cop to 13? At that time you had what, like you had 3
years.
kids? 3.
I had,
wow.
had 3
And
years at the time,
where'd you serve that time? Okay.
They sent me to
Gotcha.
USP
Wow,
Allenwood.
man.
Even though I only had 13 years, they sent me to USP Allenwood, and that's where I began. When I pulled up at USP Allenwood, remember, I never did no time. You know what I'm saying? I was beating my cases, so I never really did no solid time. Now I got a solid 13 years that I got to put away. I pulled up at USP Allenwood and saw those 2 brick walls that I had to go through. Everything changed for me. I knew at that point in time that I was either going to die, or I was going to die in prison, or it was going to all be over for me. So it was at that point in time that I lost everything. I lost all of my baby mothers. I lost everything. I had to
and I'm
actually
sure,
face reality.
and I'm sure
When I
around that
decided to
time,
change
like you
my
said,
life.
you lost everything, lost, your family for the most part. I'm sure with everything that was going on out in the streets that around that time is a time where you probably were losing a lot of friends and things of that nature as well. Yeah.
I lost my best friend, Tiny. I lost my youngin that I felt was under my care and under my responsibility. He got shot ill. I lost Dion. Man, all of my
To gun
friends
violence.
was dying to gun violence. And of course I got shot in the head. So I barely made it. And at that time I had a vision that my purpose was much more bigger than what I was. And I ran into some good people that helped me realize that while I was in. One of the dudes was Anthony Nugent. Anthony Nugent was my cellie when I went to USP Allenwood, and he is very fundamental in helping me change my mentality.
Yeah, and I want to say
and he
that
was from
real
our
quick
street.
though, because although I know a little while ago you said you want to transition from the prison stories, right? But that's your story, right? You know what I mean? And it's a story that your story is a story from trial to triumph. So it's imperative that you share that, right? Just like I seen somebody put in a comment box about it being in a book, because you can also learn from you can also learn from knowing what not to do in your life, right? So stories help people just as much as good stories. So I want you to, you know what I mean? Just know that we appreciate you sharing that story. Obviously, people are commenting in the comment box. Really appreciate that, because again, our youth, a lot of these youngsters out here today can actually learn from that story as well. You know what I'm saying? And nonetheless, that's your story. That's your truth. And you can't change that. I want to also shift to the fact that you copped to 13 years, lost everything, lost friends, lost your baby moms, your family for the most part. And you mentioned your money, and you mentioned
my money. That was the biggest issue right there. I had to start over, man. I went from
and let me
having
say
everything,
this,
man, that couldn't even
right?
make
And that's when
commissary.
they say sometimes you find yourself in your darkest moments, right? When you lost everything and you basically had to start over. And with starting over, that was doing a 13-year bid in prison. You know what I'm saying? And oftentimes, prison can be looked at as a place that, is a bunch of criminals. People have these narratives of prison. But you and I
Prison
know that
saved
there
my
are good men
life,
and
son.
women inside. Unfortunately, that may not see the light again ever, but have rehabilitated themselves as some of the most fantastic individuals that you could ever meet, sharpest people that you could ever meet. You've been an individual that have went through that struggle and has rehabilitated yourself. Please do us the pleasure of sharing how you were able to make that transition, because although you did your time inside and learned what you learned inside and rehabilitated yourself inside, I do feel that some of those core values, those principles, some of the discipline that you had to, you had to kind of implement in your life can help someone that's not going through that same struggle inside, that may be able to incorporate into their lives now while they're free. So can you tell us how you were able, how did you make that transition that you made? What made you want to make that transition that you made? Because you could have went in there and crashed, right? Never seen the light ever again in your life. But tell us a little bit of how you were able, some of the things that you did to exalt that discipline in your life to be able to transition. And then we're going to go into what you've done through that transition.
Well, I'm glad you said that. I believe that one, I got a sense of determination that was reared in me from my mother. I never gave up. I never gave up when I got shot in the head and I'm laying in a pool of blood with a bullet in my head. It was through my willpower that I was able to stand firm and not die. You know what I'm saying? God, I knew that God had a purpose for me. So when I went to prison, in order for me to take that cop, right, I was still a good dad. So I used to, in spite of everything that's going on, every time that I was on the street, I would get my 3 daughters, and anybody that know me would see me out and about with my 3 daughters every weekend with my kids, taking them shopping and taking them to the movies. That's what we used to do every weekend. When I got locked up and I got that 13 years, remember, I felt Teflon. I felt untouchable. I had the baddest lawyer that you could ever mention, Fred R. Joseph. If anybody can tell you who that is, Fred R. Joseph, he was a Teflon Don lawyer. He took all of my money. He made all of the money that I was making, he took. But he kept me free. So it didn't work this time. When I got shot in the head, I never forget what he told me. He said, Fernando, you are bright. You are intelligent. I have a case. You're going to get over $1 million in this case. I need you to move out the city and stay away from all of this until I finish the case. I couldn't do that. So much entwined with the street. I'm back out as soon as I get out the hospital with my joint in my hand, all twisted up, with a gun in the gun in my waist, another gun in my back, and I'm still out here running things. I'm thinking I got all of the answers. When I caught that federal case, Fred Joseph wouldn't take my case, man. It wasn't no amount of money that I could give him. He would not take my case. And you know what he told me? He said, man, if I take your case and get you back out on the street, you're going to die. And that set with me. Because he was my friend. He ended up dying once I was locked up. He got cancer and died. But he wouldn't take my case. So I ended up getting 3 lawyers, and all of them banged me out. Every last one of them banged me out. I ended up still having to take the 13 years. But I never forget the last telephone conversation I had with my sister. Remember, I'm supporting everybody. I'm supporting so many people. House notes, car notes, all of this. I'm doing it all. Like money is everywhere. Like I never get, my mom found 150,000 that I still kept the key to her house. So I went back in her house, stashed 150 up in the vent, and I end up needing it for a lawyer. And so I had to creep in the house, act like I'm coming to see her and my daughter. I go in the bathroom, I'm undoing the vent, and my mother kicked the door in, and money just started falling out the ceiling. So the point that I'm making is that when I caught this case, I spoke to my sister, and I made an agreement with my sister that I got to take this cop. If I don't take this cop, I'm facing 27, 30-something years in prison under the sentencing guidelines. I made an agreement with her that she would get my daughters and bring them to come see me no matter where I'm at. I gave her $10,000, the last $10,000 that I had, for her to make certain that these things take place. And that's what made me take the cop. It was my kids. And when I got locked up, I ended up meeting a guy by the name of Dominique P. Hurst, who, if anybody was in Allenwood, and he was the parenting instructor for Allenwood Low, Allenwood Medium, and USP Allenwood. And he changed my life. You know what I'm saying? And it was a parenting program because I wanted to be a better father. I wanted to be a better father. I did not want my children, as twisted as it may sound, the decisions that I made, I had convinced myself that I was doing what I was doing to give my kids a better life. Now, I know it's warped, and I know I had convinced myself of some foolishness. But at the time when I'm young, this is what I had convinced myself of why I was out there going so hard. And when I met and I started going through these parenting programs, I ended up becoming a parenting instructor through him and just really embracing parenthood. And that's when I got into educating myself. That's when I got into law. I ended up doing Bilal's case, which is Anthony Nugent. I ended up doing his case to help get many men back because I was dead in the water. So other dudes try to get back. I ended up winning Anthony Nugent's case, but they said that it was a harmless error, and they had double jeopardy. He had a double jeopardy issue, but that's what it was, man. And then, you know, at that point in time, once I flipped that switch, it was over because remember, my determination was my determination. So at that time, I took every parenting program, every program that they could offer, and I took it. I did everything that the BOP could offer me. BOP had took out college, where you couldn't take college under their dime no more. So what I did was I ended up finding a way of taking college through Penn State University. And I didn't want no rinky-dink joint because I had already took some rinky-dink joints and they banged me out my money because nobody would accept their programs. Nobody would accept their credits. So I knew that whatever I would do, I would have to get the credits accepted at a higher education school. So I had to go to an Ivy League school. So I ended up selling banana puddings, sandwiches, dinners, pizza. Anybody that knew me locked up, I sold it all. I was making cash money when I was locked up and doing all of it. I was selling pizzas to the Italians, sandwiches to the unicorn dudes, banana pudding to the dudes on the weekend. And I end up supporting myself and making enough money where I could send money home. I registered for Penn College utilizing my home address. So they didn't know that I was locked up because they wouldn't have gave it to me while I was locked up. So I tricked them to make them think. So they would send the books to my home address. And as long as the books would come in, I had worked out with the education. Remember, I'm already good in education. Because that's all I'm doing. So it ain't like they, you know what I'm saying? I'm working my hand. So I went to Troy Miller. I'm like, look, man, I'm trying to go to college. If my wife send you the books and they unopened, can she send them to you and you give them to me? So he agreed to that joint. Once he did that joint, man, I'm going to Penn State, Slim. I'm going to Penn State, Slim, and that was it, man. That was it. I'm going to Penn State.
Fast forward, man. You told me that you wrote business business plans for your release. How about that?
I did. Well, one of the things that I knew that I had to do, and this again through Dominic P. Hurst. When I went to Dominic P. Hurst, he was like, man, what you trying to be when you go home? I'm like, man, I want to be a counselor, man. I want to be, you know what I'm saying? I want to help people, man. I want to do that. And it's a white dude. You feel what I'm saying? Slim looked at me and says, he closed the door. I never forget. He closed the door. He looked in my face and he was like, look, have you looked up what a counselor earns? Have you looked up what a psychologist earns? That ain't you. He was like, once you get money, once you do what you're going to do, you can always go back and help people. You can be everything you want to be if you got money. He was get into entrepreneurship. Get into business, and I took business administration, and that's what I did.
You graduated with a business administrative degree, right?
No, when I came home from Penn State, it was two things that I couldn't take with Penn State because at the time computers wasn't accessible at the time. So I had to take a computer course,
Mm-hmm.
and it was another course that I had to take that I couldn't take in order to get my associate's degree at Penn State. So I couldn't get my degree. So I ended up writing a business plan because I knew cars. Because when I was out, I ended up getting cars. So I always used to get cars. So I learned the car business. So I knew about the wholesale of cars because I had several mini cars. And I knew my uncle had a car lot. So I wrote a business plan for a car lot, and I even called it the name. I knew what the name was and everything, and I called it Pristine Car Lot, and I spelled out the whole business plan on the car lot. I didn't know where it was going to be at or what it was going to be at the time, but I knew that I needed three things. I needed a tow truck, I needed a mechanic, and I needed a body man. So those were the three keys that I knew I needed in the business plan. And when I came home, that's what I put together from scratch. And how I got the money to do that, that's a story in and of itself, because while I was in college, right? Because a lot of people thought that, man, you must have had money, or you had money when you came. Man, I was dead broke. All my money I had, I put it towards college and eating and doing what I had to do while I was incarcerated. I came home with no money. But what happened was, when you go to college, guess what they do? They send you a credit card. So I ended up building my credit while I was in college because I was utilizing my home address. So by the time I came home, I had 3 credit cards with a $30,000 line of credit on a $10,000 line of credit on each credit card. So I came home, and at the same time, I took that cash balance out on all 3 credit cards, and I had 30
it was up
grand.
from there. And you came home in
It was up from
06,
there.
right? 06.
I came home in 06, yeah. Ended of 05. The ending of 05, beginning of 06.
Wow.
Because I had to go through a halfway
that
house.
story, that's half of your story right there is incredible, man. The way you applied yourself through everything that you went through, to be able to apply yourself, to lock in the focus, to be able to come home, to flip the credit cards that you had into a multi-million-dollar business. Let's talk about that part.
Okay, when I came home, I end up okay. I did not want to come back to DC because I was so vicious in DC. I had saw so many dudes get tricked out their life. I knew that I had changed my life. I knew that I wasn't going to never pick up a weapon again. I knew that I couldn't carry a gun again because I'll be facing 20 years felon in possession of a firearm. I knew that I wasn't never going to let people down no more. But I also knew dudes that came home with that same mentality, and they got tricked out their life because other dudes still thought that they were still the person that they was when they went in. I didn't want to be treated that way. And I didn't want the drama of somebody thinking they can get out on me, and then I'm going to go back and get that joint and end up killing them again. So many people had fucked me over while I was locked up because every time I got locked up, people thought I would never come home. You know what I'm saying? Dudes would fuck me over because they were thinking I wasn't coming home. So when I came home, I knew that these dudes would be like, man, hold up, Fernando out. And they know that they banged me out that money because people owed me money. I had over almost $200,000, $300,000 that was owed to me. That dudes, you know what I'm saying, didn't pay me, didn't send the money to my girl and all that because I was locked up. So I knew that I could not come back to DC and risk that. So I ended up moving to West Virginia, and I felt that if my mentality was what it was, that I can go anywhere and do what I needed to do. And that's what I did. I came out, went to West Virginia, opened up a car lot, built the car lot up from that $30,000. And in 2006, my taxes was $27,000. Then it went from $27,000 to $230,000. Then the next year, and by 2014, I had built that business all the way up to I was making $1.9 million in sales. And then I got profiled. As a result of that, I opened up 3 locations. I started bringing in returning citizens and employing them. I had over 20 employees. I was working with Pieceaholics in people that had the same mentality that I had, that didn't want to come back to DC. I was moving them to West Virginia, getting them a car, getting them a job, and getting them a place to live, because I had apartments up there. And basically, when the police seen all of that, they got jealous. They saw that I was living big, saw that I was moving the way I was moving, and they didn't recognize my work ethic, went back into my case, and thought that I was still doing what I was doing because of my past, and they profiled me, and they raided my business.
And they raided
illegally. They raided my business illegally.
Wow.
And they end up giving me 56 charges.
About that. I know when we were talking, you said you was charged with up to 60 bogus charges. And tell us about that situation.
Well, when they came and raided me, they took everything. Like when they came to my business, they just knew that they was gonna find something. Remember, I had 3 locations. I had several houses, several apartments. They raided all of them at the same time. You would have thought I was a terrorist. They came in that joint and they didn't find that one thing. Nothing. No guns, no drugs, no nothing. I wasn't involved in anything. I was squeaky clean, man. I was into my religion, and I had literally changed my life around and was helping other people change their life around as well. When they couldn't find anything, they took everything. They took all of my employees' cell phones. They took all of my computers, took all of my titles, all of my stuff, all of my property. It took them over 6 hours for them to get everything off my lot and to tote it up out of there. So they went through all of my paperwork with a fine-tooth comb, hoping that they would find something. And the only thing that they found was they found that I had sold cars that had previously been salvaged as a result of Carfax reports. And if I didn't give the customer a Carfax report, they said they created this. Now this was completely fraudulent on their end. They said that I had fraudulently sold them a car because I should have gave them a Carfax report. And you imagine if they charge dealerships that? You ever been to go get a car? Do those car dealers give you a Carfax report? And they gave me 60 charges because I didn't give these 60 customers Carfax reports, and charged me with conspiracy. I was facing over 600 years, and I ended up having to fight all of those criminal charges all over again. And I beat all of those charges. It took me a long time. They took the raid in 2014. I beat the charges and cleared my name until 2018. And in 2018, I filed a civil suit because I got found. All of that stuff got thrown out with prejudice. Like the judge even said that what they did was fraudulent and was a violation of my 14th Amendment rights. And that, I mean, this is in the record.
They only raided you because of your nationality. Wow.
That's what it was. My background, not my nationality, my background. I'm the only black business in that.
So you've been the only black car business in West Virginia.
No, I was the only black successful business in that town. Not just car business.
So they pulled
business in
up your history, and then they raided your establishment. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Yes. They facilitated a plan to raid my establishment and created all of these false accusations, false documents, and raided my plan. And it took me 4 years to beat it. But this is the thing. I couldn't file a civil lawsuit until the criminal lawsuit was over. When the criminal lawsuit was over and I filed the civil lawsuit to get back all of the millions that I lost, they said that I was time barred. And I couldn't, and they dismissed my case because I was time barred, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court. So they intentionally made me do that for 4 years so that the case would be time barred so I wouldn't have a back end on it. So it was, that's how them small towns work though. But you got to be at a pivot. And that's the whole point. You know what I'm saying? Like I could have let any of these things that happened to me in my life, and that's what I want to get to. I could have let these things destroy me. But I end up coming back to DC, end up taking this job with the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. At the time, it was building blocks. I ended up finding myself right back in third world, where I grew up at. I ended up having to move back where I left at 10 years old. So I did a complete circle. Tell me that ain't God speaking, Slim. It wasn't meant for me to be no car dealer. And sometimes you be thinking you're going down the right path, and you be thinking that God giving you something that's bad for you. Absolutely. But it's actually good for you. And now I'm back. I'm back in the city that I'm from. I'm back now as the whole city trying to come together, as the whole city now trying to northwest, southeast, northeast, southwest, trying to break up all of these barriers down. I'm here. I'm a part of that now.
You know, after hearing all your story, you know what I mean, the ups, the downs, you know what I mean, your journey through the system, and you know all the barriers that you have faced in your journey, man. Tell the people like what you are actively doing right now to be a positive pillar in your community. Somebody who was once a part of the problem, who has transitioned themselves to be a part of the solution. Tell them a little bit about the work that you're doing right now in the community.
Well, right now, it started out with building blocks. Once the city had made a determined effort to try to address gun violence from a holistic approach. And it has evolved into the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. The Office of Gun Violence Prevention is basically now assigned with the task to bring and to collaborate with all of the community-based organizations, all of the agencies in dealing with gun violence under the director, Linda Harper. And now she's the director that's now quarterbacking the whole Office of Gun Violence Prevention. And what I am is I'm a credible messenger. I'm the boots on the ground that gives the intelligence to that office on policy decisions, on what they should be doing, how does it interact with the street, with my team. I have a great team that I work with. Big ups to them, man, because, you know, a lot of the stuff we do is not even unheard. You know, you don't hear about it because we're not in it to try to get facial recognition, because we in it to try to really make a move. So we actually advising the Office of Gun Violence Prevention on the things that they need to be doing and where they need to do that makes common sense approach. So now we can address gun violence in the way where we can really, really make a difference. So we actually sitting at that table at the Wilson.
That's powerful. That's powerful. One thing I respect about you, because you've been through so much in your life, Fernando, and many of you met Fernando in person, you would never know he had this story if you didn't know, right? Oftentimes, you know, for individuals, sometimes they come back, like you said, they come back into society. They either go back into trying to uphold this type of image or this name that they have, or, you know, some people even do the work and still put that on their shoulders, right? As some type of like an honor or trophy, you know what I mean? Yeah.
What I used to do, Slim. That's what took me so long to really come out about it, because people that's been in the things that, like people in my circle, we don't talk. And this is really hard for me to even try to bring this out, because I don't want it to be glorified. I wasn't no gangster. I was a fool. Had I learned to pivot a long time ago, man, imagine where I would be right now. Imagine where my family would be right now. I broke a lot of hearts, man. I hurt a lot of people. And I'm going to spend my last dying days trying to make amends for that.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that I was saying I respect about you. You would never know, you know what I mean? And I want to say, you know, on behalf of the community connoisseurs, we really appreciate you sharing and you being vulnerable, because I know when we talked earlier, you said, man, you know, Charlie, I really don't even be telling my story like that, you know, but you decided to come on and tell us your truth tonight. You know what I'm saying? And one thing that I do know is you are one of the brothers that are doing the work. But like I said before, you would never know you've been through all of those situations that you shared with us tonight unless you really knew. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
I
and
approach. I
that's the way it's
appreciate
supposed to
your
go.
approach. You know what I mean? You know, those stories are stories of, you know, just environment, of lack of knowledge, immaturity, you know, bad decisions, and you stand up on that. You stand on that. I feel like, you know, people who've been through those stories should not wear those as badges of honors if they were graced to be able to make it through and to see society again. And I commend individuals like yourself who take those stories and use them as your anchor to understand, but also change the narrative that's happening in our community. You get what I'm saying? So brother, I just wanted to say that really
Absolutely.
quick. And I know that you mentioned, I mean, you're still pursuing law, right? Right now.
Yeah. Uh, uh, I'm gonna be going to law
Yeah,
school.
you're going to law school this
2023.
next year. Uh,
Yeah, I believe that's the best way that I believe that's my, not only is it my passion, but I believe that that's going to give me the biggest bite out of trying to change things and to
right.
be impactful on my purpose. So I want to be an attorney, and I'm going to law school. I got my bachelor's degree. I was able to come home and get
Mm-hmm.
my bachelor's degree from West Virginia University. So I got that in 2022. So
That's
2023,
what's up,
I'm
man.
enrolling in the law school.
That's what's up, and you know, I also wanted to say in regards to like how you're being a positive, and you have the positive impact that you have on your community right now, is the fact that, you know, I think there needs to be more brothers like you in our community who's been through what you've been through and is approaching it the way that you're approaching it. You're approaching it in a way that's very strategic, that you can really heal and help people because you have the acquired knowledge to do so. You get what I'm saying? And I say that because, you know, there is, I mean, it can be somewhat of an admiration for some youngers to hear what you've been through, but that story about what you've been through does not change what's happening in these streets. What changes what's happening is that knowledge that you have that you're able to pour into one of them youngers that are just as smart as you are when you were that age, because you were brilliant. You were an entrepreneur at a
Yeah,
very young age. You were already doing entrepreneurship just in the wrong way. You know what I mean? For you to have knowledge,
yeah,
acquire the knowledge, take time to educate yourself on that level, that's how we could create change. Coming home, brothers, sisters, is coming home, you know, and you and if you did your time in an honorable way, we salute that. But please don't wear that as a badge of honor and try to, you know, and because you ain't gonna help them youngers with that, man. You gotta take out where you can get around some brothers like
no,
Fernando. They're
man,
not trying to hear that.
they not trying to hear what you
About
did.
that.
That's how
You know what I'm
I talk
saying?
about it.
In
Yeah,
fact, it's not helping them at
yeah,
all. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? It's putting
no,
a battery in their
no,
back. You know what I'm saying? Do more. You know what I'm saying? To be
yeah,
ultra Superman or woman. You
yeah,
know what I'm talking about? So the real, you know,
yeah,
knowledge that these youngers need is to get around brothers like you to understand that, you know, you really have rehabilitated yourself. You know what I'm saying? And you taking out the time and giving them the blueprint to do what they need to do so they won't have to go through what you've been through. And that's what I salute about you. That's what the community connoisseur salute about you, because you're a brother that went through that, but you don't wear that on your sleeve. You know what I'm saying? You're not walking around. That's your story, but at the same time, that ain't, you know, that ain't the way that you're exalting your leadership in a community. Man, I've seen you come in suit and tie. I've seen you looking sharp. I've seen you in room. I would have never imagined you had the story that you went through. So I just want to take time to really commend you for sharing, because like you said, coming up the way you came up, y'all don't talk. You know what I'm saying? But
no,
what you shared with us, man, and
yeah,
being vulnerable in this space, we truly, truly, truly appreciate it, man. We need more brothers to lock in, that has your perspective, that has your knowledge, and we need to unify to start making change in our communities, man. Real talk. So Fernando, man, you know, we went over time, but I had to, man. This was too real, too deep, man. You know what I'm saying? And then, like you said, you don't talk. I got you talking. you can all, we're better to do it, but on a moment of truth, brother. And I really appreciate this. But before we go, right, I want to give you the platform to really give you a chance to talk about what's upcoming. I know you say you're going to law school in 2023. You're also going for a business dealership you were talking about for 2020. Tell us about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now that the civil case is over, I'm reestablishing up the dealership again. I still have the location in West Virginia, so uh, I'm reestablishing that up, and I'm gonna get back into trying to rehouse, help. And now I have the bridge, because now it's like once you go through something, you now got that knowledge to do it better. So now I don't have to be there. I already got the blueprint, so I can give that blueprint to somebody else. So I'm setting up that blueprint for somebody else to run that dealership, and now to set that dealership up now so that that thing can still be moving and still going and still be able to do that. I also got a company that I opened up called Duke and Duchess that's right here going to be on Martin Luther King Avenue. Basically, that's going to be a consultant, CVI consultant, community wellness, and where we're going to be trying to figure out a way to make a positive impact on trying to implement like positive change towards the people out here that's on the block, the dudes that's out here on the block that got that same mentality like we got, so that we can give that entrepreneurship and give them that upper hand, where now they can actually have something in their hand that they can gravitate towards, so that now they can move up and show them that it can be done. So so we doing that. But you know, my main thing is that I want to lead with is that, man, that, you know, struggle. I found that one, you got to be determined that it's not going to be no easy pathway. If you're looking for success in an easy pathway, when I look at all of the things that I went through and everything that I did, I escaped. I'm still here. There's many people that's not here. There's many of my friends that can't speak like I speak. There's many of my friends that, even though they didn't go through the things that I went through, they are not in a position that I'm in. So I still feel that I'm favorable. I still feel that I'm favored by God. And with that being said, man, I'm like, you know, struggle defines the character. You know what I'm saying? When we go through our struggle, it helps defines the character, just like fire helps melt the steel. But not only the struggle defines the character, it exposes it as well. So be very self-aware who you are and what your capabilities are. Because had I known that, had I learned this early on, it's no telling. So that's what I want to implore upon my people, that, you know, we are great and we can be great. There's nothing stopping us but us. That's it. If we get our own selves out the way, man, we can do whatever we want to do. Whatever
man.
it
Look,
is.
Fernando, this has been a phenomenal conversation, brother. You know, we can go, you know what I'm saying, hours and hours. I already know, man, but you know, for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. But I want to just say again, bro, like, man, we really appreciate you coming on, sharing your story with us tonight, man, because like, you don't talk about it often. I know somebody put in the comment box that you need to write a book. I agree, man. I definitely would love to see that in the future, for you to bring out a book about your life, your journey, and the things that you're doing and the things that you're going to be doing in the future, man. You have a beautiful future ahead of you. I salute and I honor your transition, because it's not easy. It's harder to unlearn than to learn, right? You know what I mean? And the time that you took to really to recondition the way you look at and you view, you know, just your life and in general, you know, coming from what you came through, being in those situations that you've been through, being shot in your head, you know what I'm saying? And doing and going through the system, during the time that you did, and coming out the man that you are now. You a survivor, bro. You know, like more,
Man, death penalty was one of the things that was one of the, yeah, when they had that death penalty
bro.
on me, man, yeah, to be so strong when them people
Tough,
trying to
man.
kill you.
So you've been through you've been through so much, man, and there's people out here that's depressed, that's stressed, that's going through things that couldn't even attest to your story. So I really, man, would love to, you know, stay, continue to learn from your journey, to be a part of your journey. We locked in, bro. We brothers, you know. And I would.
Yeah, we. That's the reason why I came on your joint, man, because when I look at your show,
Nah,
I
we
don't
ain't
see you
gonna do
glorifying that
that.
foolishness. That's and that was the most impactful thing that made me decide to make this move, because I do not want
Absolutely,
my past to be glorified. There's no glory
absolutely,
in
man.
that trauma that I've gone through. Day. Nobody can see
Absolutely.
my nightmares but
Man,
me.
we stand on that, man. And we about transformation over here. If we dealing with these youth, young adults or adults, man, that's going through things, man, we really trying to transition them. And we know that we can't do it if we around here idolizing the wrong things. We're not doing what we need to do in our personal lives to develop and recondition and unlearn some of the things that me and my partners that came up with. So it's a necessity for us to, keep it straightforward, but none of that idolization of anything that's destroying our community, because we understand the impact that it's having on our people. And that's what we stand on, the betterment of our people. So we appreciate you and everything that you do. We're going to continue to lock in with you. I know my brother Vito just now put in the comment box for you to send some more. Good man, if you got some people that you working with that would like to share their story, you know what I mean, that is credible to come on to talk about some of the phenomenal things that they're doing in the community, please send them my way. But nonetheless, bro, we locked in. We're going to continue to work together on a lot of things in our community. I know you and I talk often about it, but not only talking, we're going to really put some actionable items together to make sure that we're doing what we got to do while we here to uplift our people. So again, man, on the behalf of Community Connoisseurs, Fernando, man, we honor you. We treasure you. We appreciate you, brother. Keep doing what you're doing, King. We appreciate you for your time and for everything that you shared with us tonight, bro. One love, man. Peace and love, brother. All right.
All right.
There you have it. The King, Fernando Smith, came on our platform and dropped so many Jews, told us about his story from trials to triumph. Man, that brother is a survivor right there. If y'all not following him, make sure y'all follow him, Fernando underscore Doe Smith. Just look at his page on our page. You can get the right, page. Make sure y'all follow that brother. He's a true survivor, a soldier who been through the struggle, that's out here doing phenomenal things in his community. And if you're not following Community Connoisseurs, be sure to follow us at community underscore connoisseurs. This has been the Moment of Truth. We bring these conversations to you, this podcast to you every Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. Next week, we'll be right back at it. So if you do not follow us, give us a follow. And you can also visit our website at communityconnoisseurs.org to check out some of the work that we do in the community. If you have the generosity in your heart, we are a self-funded 501c3 DC-based nonprofit organization. You have the generosity in your heart, hit that donate button on our website to donate to the cause. And we truly, truly appreciate you joining us tonight. Just tuning in. A lot of you all stayed on the whole conversation. If you just got on late, make sure that y'all go onto our page and look at it. We're going to upload this video on our page so you can review the whole conversation. It was a powerful one, I promise you. And again, this has been the Moment of Truth. We appreciate you tapping in. We'll see you next week, 7:30 p.m. sharp. Peace and love.